Everybody, welcome to the DGR meeting for Monday, June 5th. We're going to just do some introductions and we'll have an announcement or two and then we'll get started with the agenda. So, Councilor Bacon to my right, Councilor McGivern to my left, Councilor Puello, Councilor Maldonado Velez online. I'm going to recognize, I'm the vice chair of the committee. I'm going to recognize Councilor McGivern first.
Thank you, Chairman Bartley, and to the members of the committee. I know the only item on the agenda this evening is our request for recommendations to the mayor on the ARPA phase funding. One application from the Friends of the Holyoke Merry-Go-Round is part of these requests. I am a member of the board of directors for some 30 years now at the Merry-Go-Round, and therefore I believe I have a conflict of interest. I have put a request into the Ethics Commission, State Ethics Commission, and I believe they're going to agree that there is a conflict. So because of transparency and because of the conflict laws the way they are, I'm going to excuse myself from this meeting and discussion on any of the recommendations and requests for ARPA.
Okay, thanks, Councilor McGivern. I'll make one other announcement, then I'm going to invoke a city council rule that yours truly had a lot to implement. I'm glad we have it. So the chair of this committee has a conflict and will not be present. The Ward 1 councilor, who is a member of this committee, has a family emergency and is unavailable. Consequently, we're going to need a third member to make a quorum. And as the acting chair of this committee, Councilor Puello, would you be willing to serve under the city council rules to fill out a quorum?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, so that does not require a vote of the committee. So the three voting members of the DGR committee tonight will be Councilor Bacon, myself, and Councilor Puello. And with that, I think I made all the announcements that I had to make, and I'll take a motion to take one off the table, please.
Motion to take up item 1.
Oh, second.
Okay, motion made and seconded to take item 1 off the table. On discussion, hearing none. On the motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, okay. Okay, this is from Ms. Zoeller, the Administrator of Office of Community Development. It's a 2023 ARPA allocation spreadsheet. I'm going to recognize Ms. Zoeller in a minute. I just want to point out that for the public, and there are members of the public here tonight, which is always very nice to see. The decision-making and just a point of I'm hearing a feedback out of this computer. Jeff, is that something that can be amended pretty easily?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that? I apologize.
No, you don't have to apologize. There's the laptop that's used for city council Zoom things. It's just feeding back. Can you just turn out the volume so I don't have to hear myself and everybody else in the microphone?
Scott's on his way out there right now.
Okay, thanks a lot. Let's just get these technical difficulties straightened out first, and then we'll.
So, Mr. Chairman,
Councilor Bacon.
I would just like to note that at around 4 o'clock, we did get an attachment from Alicia also that included 73 public comments relative to the applicants.
Thanks, Scott. So what council, do you want to add something, Councilor Bacon, or just?
No, I just simply wanted to make it known that they had been sent.
Okay, and just if I could, Councilor Bacon, because I haven't checked my emails since earlier today. Were the public comments, who were they sent to?
They came to my email from Alicia Zoeller, and so I'm thinking they were received by her office, and maybe she can summarize them for us.
Oh, okay, so all right, thanks for the heads up on that. So what we're going to do tonight is we're going to follow the lead of Ms. Zoeller. She's the longtime department head of the Office of Community Development and does a great job. And her staff have put in a lot of time and effort. So the public, I think, is aware of this, but just in case they're not, the way ARPA works is very similar to the Community Development Block Grant, which is to say we have a couple layers of review, namely the Citizens Advisory Committee and the City Council, of which we're sitting right now. But ultimately, all those are just suggestions, and they can be disregarded by the chief executive, and that's the mayor. And so, as much as we want to think that we're really weighing in, ultimately the mayor can say that he'd like to go his own way. I will say this, that under Mayor Murphy, acting Mayor Murphy, he had us review it, and he took the recommendations very seriously. So I'm going to suggest that the mayor refer this to us with purpose and intent, and that means he wants us to really hear from the CAC, and he really wants to hear from DGR, and he really wants to hear from the full city council. And the last point I'm going to make before I turn over to Alicia is that this body only recommends, the city council committees only recommend to the full board, and that's all we're going to do. So that being said, Alicia, you're with us, I take it.
Good evening. I'm here. I'm participating from my office so that I can share the spreadsheet with you and update it as we go in real time so you know exactly where you're at. If you opt to go line by line, we can certainly share it. If the committee opts for a bit of a different approach where perhaps you want to make bucket recommendations or priority recommendations to the mayor as opposed to line by line, you can do that. Otherwise, I'm set up here and ready to go for you.
Okay, thank you, Alicia. I'm thinking this is likely to be a hybrid. I've had a fair amount of experience doing this with the ARPA and with block grant. And generally we go through line by line, although there's an unusual list this time. It's a good 4 pages of single spaced and pretty small font. But I'm just run the meeting, really. So I'll defer to committee. If anybody wants to speak as a city councilor, just raise their hand. I'll either recognize or Linda will just tap me on the shoulder and we'll go from there. Councilor Bacon.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, I think it would be helpful if Alicia could share the spreadsheet on the screen, because we have Councilor Puello on Zoom participating. And
I have the paperwork.
You're all set with that?
Yeah, I have the emails. Thank you.
Oh, okay, good enough. Then I guess what I would like to do is sort of a hybrid of the suggestion by Alicia. And I'm wondering if the committee is willing to look at section 5. And Alicia, when you get a chance, if you could summarize for us, you sent this afternoon an email that had a lot of public comments included. I haven't had a chance to look at them all, and I don't know if you're able to give us a summary. Some of us have received direct emails from folks, but not in the numbers that you shared.
Sure, I'd be happy to. So as part of the public process with ARPA, we opened a public comment period and invited folks to review the spreadsheet, review the proposals, and to submit any public comments that they had. We ran it for about a month. Today was the last day, so we have been accumulating them. The attachment that you received actually has an inventory of all of the comments that were received to date. And the comments have primarily come in support of just a few proposals. So we've received a fair number of public comments in support of the Lighthouse School proposal. The Clean Crop Technologies proposal received 1. Develop CHI received 1, 2 for Develop CHI. South Holyoke Homes received 1. Wind Development received 1. 1 for the Holyoke Merry-Go-Round. Multiple public comments in support of Gateway City Arts. Multiple public comments in support of Mass Hire. multiple public comments in support of Enlace's proposals, a couple in support of the Homework House, and a couple of them in support of the Water Street water line. And I think that's everybody. So very few proposals, but really overwhelming public comment had come in. Very few proposals. There's not a lot of diversity here. It was very concentrated on the proposals that people were writing in support of. All of these have been also provided to the mayor, and he will take them into account when he's making his final decisions. They really are centered around, for instance, the value of the public services that are being offered by the agencies that people were writing in support of. It was comments around the need for some of the proposals and the value that the proposal or the entity adds to the community. Mm-hmm. Again, this was just another method to make sure that we were reaching out to all segments of the community, and it's another puzzle piece that we're providing to the mayor in supporting him in making the final allocations. So if you all remember, when we started this process, we started it by saying we had approximately 19 million in ARPA funds available, and that allocation process was going to look like a puzzle that when we were done would be completed. And the puzzle pieces in completing this process include the public comment period, the recommendations from OCD staff, the recommendations from the Citizens Advisory Committee, recommendations from DGR Committee and the City Council, the business survey that was completed, the community survey that was completed, and feedback that we've received along the way. So when the mayor puts all of the information together, he has information from really every sector in the community, every neighborhood, and he will sit down and take a look at all of the different pieces, all of the different public input, all of the different allocations, all of the different studies that have been done on how to rebound from COVID and make those final allocations.
Okay, thank you very much.
All set, Councilor Bacon?
Yes.
All set, okay.
And I would just like to say one more thing, if I can.
Yeah, you got the floor.
So what I was suggesting we might do, I think there were some excellent recommendations from the CAC, who spent 3 to 4 hours looking over all these applications in quite some detail. And I see one section of the recommendations where there might be some tendency to have agreement and in concert with some comments from the public. So I'm wondering if we could go to section 5 on the infrastructure.
Yeah, Miss.
If you'd rather go in a different order, Mr. Chairman, I'll defer.
I would.
Okay.
But I want to. I think I saw somebody with their hand up.
Oh.
Does anybody have their hand up on the computer?
I have my hand up.
Councilor Vera.
Thank you for recognizing me. So I just wanted to ask, with regards to the projects that people were advocating for, I on the paper I saw that there were some for community education project too as well. I'm not sure if you mentioned that. I also got like 12 emails from them too as well on the side.
I'm very sorry. Yes, CEP, I think I mentioned it as CEP, but CEP is a community education program, and we did receive a number of comments.
Thank you. That was.
Okay, so I appreciate that. So just one other thing, two other things. One, I want to recognize the CAC. They've been mentioned many times. Albert Boulder, Mike Falsetti, Juan Montano, Victor Machado, Willie Spradley, and Rosanna Lopez. Thank you all for your work. Alicia, thank you for your work. And Ashley, thank you for your work too. I think that just because I'm a linear person and it would make my life simpler instead of skipping around to various parts. I'd rather, if you look at the spreadsheet that we have, it's broken down into 7 major categories, and 1 or 2 of these are pretty lengthy, but I think if we just hit the major categories and we can take it either line by line or a hybrid in the categories and go from there, just so Alicia can follow us on the spreadsheet, and we'll take it from there. So, Councilor Puello, you have the spreadsheet in front of you, is that correct?
I do, Mr. Chairman.
All right, so if we, and just, I'm sorry, one final thing. Normally, and I do apologize to the public, because every single time I run a meeting and that is not a public hearing, and the public is here, and I know the public wants to speak, we inevitably just sort of suspend our rules and allow the public to speak. But in this one case with a $19 million and dozens and dozens of proposals, I would rather just sort of comb through it, see how we do. Right now it's 10-7. Let's just see how we do coming through it. I already laid out really who the decision maker is on this. We've already acknowledged that we received multiple emails, whether or not Alicia named them. All those public comments are going to get funneled back to city councilors and to the mayor, the decision makers. Anybody here in the room with us, please reach out to city councilors and to the mayor as well. And you'll have ample opportunity to do that. Well, I shouldn't say ample, you'll have 24 hours. But, well, actually, that's not true, because we'll take the vote tomorrow.
Right.
We'll take the vote tomorrow at our meeting, and we'll send our recommendations to the mayor. So when the mayor decides, Alicia, when does the mayor have to decide when the ARPA funds are to be allocated?
The mayor is hoping to make his decisions within the next 2 weeks.
Within the next 2 weeks?
Within the next 2 weeks. And just to be clear, there was a public comment period that we ran for about 30 days, and that closed today.
No, I was clear, because you received all those public comments and you enumerated all of them, Alicia, so I'm pretty clear on that. But now that so public comment is technically over, but that doesn't mean you can't reach out to the mayor or any other elected official. So that's, dissuade yourself of that notion completely. So you have every right to reach out to anybody who's elected, okay? All right, so let's just go with number one, public health. There's not a whole lot in this one. Do any members of the committee want to make a comment on Holyoke Public Schools? No? Okay. Any comment on HPD shot spotter / tasers? Councilor Reagan.
As we go forward, if there's money available for that line, I'd like to see us support it.
Okay, I mean, you can make here's the way you could make a motion to recommend the CAC, you can make a motion to recommend OCD, or you can make no motion whatsoever. So I just want to kind of keep it rolling if at all possible. All right.
All right, and we can amend them later. So
You can.
I'd like to make a motion to accept the OCD recommendation relative to the shot spotter.
Do I have a second for that?
I'll second that.
Okay, motion been and seconded to recommend the shot spotter at the OCD
Which
recommend.
is 336,000.
Right, which is 336,000. Under discussion? Under discussion?
I would just note that it's a new tool that's been brought to bear in the city, and so far, it has identified some problems that otherwise would not have been called in. So the early results show that it would be worth supporting.
Any further discussion? Councilor Rivera.
I kind of wish that someone from the police department or the mayor was here just to better elaborate on the application, but I guess I could defer to the larger meeting tomorrow and talk about it tomorrow more in depth, just so that you guys could keep rolling on.
That's okay, and I think you're gonna, and I heard what you said, but if the police department or any other entity, there's HCC Culinary Arts Institute, I mean, I don't know if we're gonna have anybody from HCC here tonight. There's Wayfinders, there's Greater Holyoke YMCA. I don't know if they're gonna be here tonight, but the good news is, for any counselor, that all the applications have been
But
sent.
none of those are on the payroll, Mr. Bartley, I'm sorry. That's just a different thing for me though, but thank you.
Well, thank you, but I'm explaining it. So there's all sorts of entities have the right to be here, but as the counselor heard me say at the beginning, I'm really not taking feedback at this point, because there's been ample opportunity for feedback. So and any counselor has a right to ask any department head or anyone else questions offline. So let's we'll just keep going. So the motion on the floor is a 336 for OCD. Any further comment? Ms. Zoeller, do you want to make a comment?
I'm going to start, as you all make motions, I'm going to start dropping them into the spreadsheet. And I have this running so that at any point in time, you can ask me what you have left, what you've allocated and what you have left to allocate.
Thank you.
All right, and I'll also say that when, if a counselor has at least, because in this case, the motion's made to accept the OCD 336. So you heard what previous counselor said relative to, he wished that somebody from HPD was here, but in this case, you heard from HPD. Is there a reason you want to give to why OCD supported the 336?
It's a continuation of a program that was partially funded in the earlier rounds, and so we'd like to see the program continue and wrap up in this round.
Okay, so
As for the specific community violence intervention aspect of it, I would defer to the police department.
smart move. Okay, so on the motion for 336, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? None. Okay, 336, Alicia. Okay, so next up, Wildflower Alliance, Homework House, Inc. I'm going to make a motion for Homework House, Inc. to support the CAC recommendation of 100,000.
Second that.
Second.
Okay, the reason I'm making the motion is the Homework House is just a spectacular, well-established entity serving a community that really needs to have help. And so that's why I made that. Alicia, just if I may, CAC recommended 100,000, OCD said 0. Why?
So as I explained in our memo, OCD is focused on taking care of in-house, critical in-house needs first, and those are primarily the municipal projects and not the public services. We also recognize that many of these folks would be CDBG eligible in future rounds, but really OCD staff made some tough calls and really suggest that the city get itself in order on projects that have been long languishing. And you'll see that reflected in the later portions of the spreadsheet.
Definitely, yeah. Okay, so, I think that's probably going to be, and so I want to have that laid out real quick, Alicia, so that way I don't have to keep going back as to the why. Because I did read your memo, I did see it. I'm going to say you were pretty consistent in that, although I don't know if that was 100% true, but I'll stand corrected as we go forward. So the motion is for the 100,000 for Homework House. I don't see anyone else's hand up on the motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. Okay, that is granted. Next, River Valley Counseling. Okay, I don't hear anybody that. The next one up is, is that OCD? Office for Community? Oh, it is. Okay, so it's got cut off. OCD, Public Health Response, Other, $500,000. Does anyone make a motion on that?
I guess I would like to hear from Alicia on that one.
Motion made second, hear from Alicia on that. Alicia, what's happening with the 500,000?
So, this is a line item that we used in the first round of ARPA, and we suggested that the city consider using it in the second round of ARPA. And that is to respond to any public health issues that arise over the next couple of years. So here we see it in June of 2023. ARPA funds must be fully expended by December 30th, 2026. So we still have a period of time to go. This fund would be used for items where the Board of Health and the mayor agree that there's a necessity for a public health response. So for instance, in the first round, we had a set aside for public health response items. And as an example of what we used it for, I believe one of the projects was porta potties in the parks. So at the time, we realized that we didn't have sufficient sanitation facilities to address COVID in the parks. And so the public health response line item was used to fund that. So it's activities that are deemed public health necessities by the Board of Health Director and the Mayor.
Okay.
I'd like to defer this to later in the meeting, if we can.
Yeah, I'd second that. I would agree.
Yeah, you don't have to, we'll defer it. Anything we vote on, we can always circle back, okay? So we'll just I'll put a big circle around that with a question mark. Okay, let's go on to chapter 2, negative economic impacts. So under this category, and it's a fairly lengthy one, it's probably the lengthiest, it is definitely the lengthiest one out of all the categories. So first one, and there's subsets to it as well. So assistance to households, food. The first one up is HCC Thrive Center Basic Needs Outreach. And both.
We've got elder services.
I'm sorry, thank you. Western Mass Elder Care. I'm sorry, let's go in order. Thank you for correcting me. Elder Disabled Individuals Meal Project. CAC said 40,000. Wow, well, the CAC said 40,000, OCD said 0. Can we member want to make a motion?
Alicia, is this a funding that comes from the state to West Mass Elder Care?
So West Mass Elder Care has a number of funding streams. This was one where the OCD staff recommended not funding it through this pool of ARPA because we're able to reach out and provide them funding. We have some extra CDBG CV funds left, and so that was one of the ones that we were going to reach out to.
Okay, that's great. That's very helpful.
Again, we're trying constantly to maximize our revenue streams, and every single one of these 80+ proposals is valid and certainly points to a need in the city. However, the OCD staff was really focused on taking care of our internal health, our municipal health, as well as a couple of the housing projects that need some additional funds to move forward where there aren't other identified funding streams. We're about to roll out some additional funds for CDBG CV, which were the COVID money that we received from HUD, the Community Development Block Grant Program. And we're also going to be rolling out in the fall a special ARPA allocation that came to the city through the HOME program, which is to be used for homeless services and housing needs for very low income people. So again, other funding streams, trying to prioritize.
Can I have a follow-up question, please?
Counselor?
So to follow up, under this category of negative economic impacts, in the instances where you didn't recommend funding, is the statement that you just gave to us explaining West Mass Elder Care holding true for the rest of these applications?
It could hold true for the rest of the applications in food, in rent and utility. I would say, let me just scroll down. So CDBG, CV funds, we would be able, again, we don't have a lot of money. We only have about 130,000 to reallocate, but it would be applicable to food, rent, utility, job training, and children.
Okay.
As well as, and then when we look down further, there's some homeless and public services around housing, not housing itself, but public services around housing, and those may be home ARP eligible activities. So we may have some funding available in the future for those.
Okay.
Counselor, you set?
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I don't hear a motion for West Mass Elder Care, so let's go on to, and I'll do a better job of reading these off too. So next one is HCC Thrive Center Basic Needs Outreach. CAC recommended 0, OCD recommended 0. Do I have a motion on that?
Can we just take up the whole section, and then if we have a motion relative to one, we can do it, or do we need to? do each line?
Well, I think we can go through it pretty fast.
Okay.
Frankly. So I better give people the opportunity to think about and speak. So,
I would like to accept the recommendations of CAC and OCD on the item you just read.
okay, so I'll second that. On discussion? Hearing none, on the motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye?
Aye.
Okay, HCC Culinary Institute, Health and Wellness Education for Holyoke's Food and Secure, it's 0 by CAC, 0 by OCD.
I'll offer the same motion.
I'll second that same
Second.
motion. Okay, under discussion? Hearing none, on the motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, those are 0. Greater Holyoke Chamber, the Farmers Market, 28,760 for CAC, 0 for OCD.
I'll make a motion to accept the OCD rec.
Second.
Motion made and second to accept the OCD recommendation. On discussion? Hearing none, on the motion, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, rent utility, VOC, assistance with utilities. The CAC recommended 20,000, OCD recommended 0. Do I have a motion?
To accept the OCD rec.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to accept the OCD recommendation. I might just say that it would be interesting because VOC is so well established. I'd like to find a way to support them personally, but, I hear what
We can come back.
yeah, so, why don't we come back to that one, okay?
Well, right now it's 0,
But-
and we can come back at
But
the
I do have a motion, I'll recognize the
To
motion.
anything? Yep.
On the motion to accept the OCD recommendation, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, I'm going to oppose that, so, but we can always come back. All right. The rent utility, VOC, Salvation Army, rent and utility assistance, 20,000 for CAC, 0 for OCD. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to accept the OCD recommendation for
Second.
now.
Motion made and seconded to recommend OCD recommendation. I don't see any further hands up. On the motion, all in favor? Aye. Okay. Let's see, internet access, Tech Foundry IT support training program. The recommendations by both CAC and OCD are 0.
A motion to accept the
Motion.
recommendations.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to accept the recommendations. Under discussions, hearing seeing none. On the motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Wayfinders Advancing Digital Equity in Holyoke. The recommendations from CAC and OCD are both 0.
Motion to accept recommendations.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to accept the recommendations. Any further discussion? Hearing none. On the motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. All right. Job training. Save the Children Foundation, Inc. Low, moderate income youth and family development. OCD and CAC both recommend 0. Do I have a motion?
Motion to accept recommendations.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to accept the recommendations of the CAC and OCD. Hearing and seeing no further discussion on the motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Community Education Project, Native Language Literacy, English for Speakers of Other Languages, ESOL. CAC recommended 40,000, OCD recommended 0.
I'd motion to recommend OCD. Or to follow OCD's recommendation.
I'll second it. Any discussion?
I would just like to hear from Alicia on.
Alicia, can you address this as to why you zeroed out that particular line item?
Again, I feel like I'm sort of beating the drum here. Really focused not so much in these rounds on public services, but on those rounds, on those expenditures that are going to get the city of Holyoke itself in line for the 21st century, as well as provide housing that is a long-term tax generating investment here in the city of Holyoke.
I'd like to recommend $20,000 between 0 and the CAC recommendation, if the committee's willing to entertain it.
Do I have a second on that?
I'll second it.
Motion made and seconded, recommend $20,000 for this, for ESOL, for the Community Education Project. Any further discussion? Hearing none. On the motion, all in favor?
Aye.
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 None opposed. $20,000 suggested by this committee. Children is the headline for this one, and let's see, we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 projects. Okay. Let's see, let's take two of these together because I can do two of these, 1 and 2. So the first two are from the Holyoke YMCA, and I'll read them both off. Child Care Egress Project, Child Care Outdoor Play Space Project. The CAC recommended 0 for both. OCD recommended 0 for both.
Make a motion to accept the recommendations of both.
Second.
Motion made and second to recommend, to accept the recommendations for both these. Under discussion, hearing and seeing none. On the motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. None opposed. Enlace de Familias, Holyoke Family Network, Inc., Parenting Program. The CAC and OCD both recommended 0.
Motion to
Motion to
accept.
accept.
Second.
Motion's made and second to accept. On discussion, hearing and seeing none. On the motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
None opposed. We'll combine these next two. These are both from the Connecticut River Conservancy with Holyoke Rose. The first one is investing in the Jones Ferry River Access Program and equipment to improve public health outcomes, safety, and access to river recreation. The second is investing in Jones Ferry River Access Facility and Park to improve public health outcomes, safety, and access to river recreation. And this we have a split. So for Jones Ferry River Access Programming, CAC recommended 80, OCD recommended 0. Do I have a motion for that one?
I'll make a motion to accept the OCD rec.
I'll second.
A motion's been seconded to recommend, to accept the OCD recommendation. Under discussion. Hearing and seeing none. On the motion, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed, none. The next one from Connecticut River Conservancy, CAC recommends 122,748. OCD recommends 0.
Mr. Chairman?
Councilor Reagan.
I'd like to hear from Alicia on what the facilities were, what the infrastructure was.
Alicia?
So this project is the continuation of improvements to Jones Ferry River Access Center, and OCD recommended not funding it from ARPA because it would be a CDBG eligible activity in a really good public facility for the next round.
Okay, thank you.
Well, I would just say under that argument, because CDBG is, so here is just in line with what the OCD department had said, is for building the city's infrastructure, and knowing what we know about CDBG funds and how limited they are, to me, this one probably calls out for some kind of an investment from ARPA. So I'd like to I'll make a motion to accept the CAC's recommendation for 122,748.
I'll second that.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded to accept the CAC's recommendation of 122,748. Under discussion. Any further? Hearing none, seeing none. On the motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so that's 122,748 for the Holyoke Rose Jones Ferry. Next category, housing. And again, this is under the long category tonight of negative economic impacts. I told you, everybody, this is a long one, but once we get through this, it'll be straight downhill, I promise you. But we got a little ways to go. So, housing, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, about a baker's dozen under this one. First one says, develop CHI, DB, that's doing business as, so I'm gonna have Alicia explain that one to me. 22 market rate, 11 workforce units, 14,000 square feet wellness center. Okay, so they requested $2.225 million. CAC said 0, OCD said 0.
Motion to accept the recommendations of
Second.
CAC and OCD.
Motion made and seconded. Under discussion, hearing and seeing none. On the motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, next up, Greater Springfield Habitat for Humanity, affordable home ownership. They requested 200. CAC said 200. OCD said 200. Do I have a motion for this one? I can look at my Google Drive if I can get to it. Just to see what's happening with this. Alicia, do you want to comment on this for half a second, because this is.
Sure, I'd be happy to. So you'll see that the focus for both the CAC discussion and the OCD's discussion were around creating home ownership opportunities as opposed to rental opportunities here in the city. The city is at a 40-60 ratio of home ownership to rental housing. We have very high number of rental housing units and fewer home ownership opportunities. And so Habitat has been working here in the city. They've been working under ARPA 1 successfully. They've been working under the home program successfully. And that's why OCD staff recommended it.
And how much home ownership are we going to create with $200,000?
That creates one single family home.
And one single family home, so not a duplex, one single family home.
One single family. Yep.
Okay.
And then the family does buy it with a mortgage. They don't. It's not a grant to the family. The family does have a mortgage on it.
But the mortgage will be repaid to Greater Springfield Habitat, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so it's a grant
And
to
so you'll
Springfield.
see.
Go ahead.
You'll see down further that the other direct homeownership development proposal that was recommended was the Housing Authority. That project is already underway.
Right. Okay. Okay, do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the recommendation of the CAC and OCD.
Is there a second?
No. That's okay.
I don't hear a second for that.
Okay.
Anybody else want to make a motion?
I'd make the motion to, just recommend 0.
I'm going to second that motion. Any further discussion? Hearing none, on the motion to recommend not funding the Greater Springfield Habitat. On the motion, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Okay, so it's 2-1. That is zeroed out, 2-1. Okay. VOC, High Street Safe Affordable Housing. CAC and OCD both said 0.
Motion to accept their recommendation.
Second.
Motion made, second is to accept the recommendation. Hearing, seeing no discussion further on the motion, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Motion carries. Appleton Redevelopment LP, Historic Appleton Mill Restoration and Affordable Housing Coalition, both CAC and OCD said 0.
I'll make a motion to
Motion to
accept the
accept.
recommendations.
Motion made and second to accept the recommendations of CAC and OCD on discussion. Hearing, seeing none on the motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Next one, Holyoke Housing Authority, South Holyoke Homes Phase 2 home ownership. requested 2.5 million. CAC and OCD both recommended 2.5 million.
Mr. Chairman.
Council Reagan.
So, Alicia, I just have a question on this one. So, it appears that this is a continuation, and I'm just wondering why the Housing Authority needs the ARPA money when it has such a healthy fund balance.
So for this one, I believe the cost estimates have been coming in higher, than what they had anticipated. And so that's where the ARPA request had come from.
So, are they funding a proportion of the remainder?
Let me pull up the budget, Counselor. Hold on. Okay, if anybody is following along and has the budget package that we put together, this is on page 61 of the budget package.
Thank you.
So the budget package is the total overall project cost is 6.8 million. The agency contribution is 2.6 million. And the ARPA contribution request is 2.5 million. And they have construction listed as having an other contribution of 1.75 million, 1,750,000. And they note that they are seeking funding through the Mass Housing Commonwealth Builder Program as the other contribution. So there's an agency contribution of 2.6 million, an ARPA contribution of 2.5 million, and an other contribution of 1,750,000 from the Mass Housing Commonwealth Builder Program.
Okay, thank you for that.
Sure.
Well, we got a motion. Gonna need one.
I'm gonna motion to accept recommendation.
I'll second that.
Motion made and seconded to accept the recommendation for 2.5 million for the South Holyoke Homes Phase 2. On the motion, any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? None. Okay, carries. All right. Moving on to One Holyoke CDC Home Ownership Initiative. CAC and OCD both said
Motion to accept the recommendations.
0. Actually,
Second.
I'm going to suspend my way. I'm going to go through this a little bit quicker for this part. So that's One Holyoke CDC. The next one under housing is Amherst Shelter Inc., Holyoke Shelter for Women. Both OCD and CAC said 0. The next was Greater Westfield Committee for Homeless Inc., Samaritan Supports and Shelter. Both OCD and CAC said 0. The next is VOC Property Tax Assistance. CAC and OCD said 0. And the next one is Wayfinders Resident Services to Stabilize Families. OCD and CAC said 0. Would somebody like to make a motion on these?
I'll make
Motion
a
to accept recommendations.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded to accept the recommendations of CAC and OCD for the aforementioned. Under discussion. Hearing and seeing none. On the motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Let's see. The next one is Revitalize CDC, Asthma Remediation and Age-in-Place Home Modifications for Holyoke residents impacted by COVID-19. CAC said 0. OCD said 200,000.
I'll make a motion to accept the CAC recommendation.
Second.
Motion made and second to accept the CAC recommendation. Under discussion. Hearing and seeing none. On the motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 3-0. Okay, next category under economic impacts is healthcare facility, there are two. Holyoke Health Center, I'm going to read them both off. Holyoke Health Center, Healthcare Workforce Training Center. And next one is Holyoke Medical Center, Inc., medical facilities for disproportionately impacted communities. Both CAC and OCD recommend 0.
Motion to accept recommendation.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to accept the recommendations for both. Under discussion. Hearing and seeing none. On the motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, motion carries. Next category under economic impacts is neighborhood features. This is going to be, this one we're going to have to go through one by one. In Lasse,
I'd really like to do the infrastructure.
in Lasse, Counselor Puello, I don't want to botch the pronunciation. La Ruta del Sabor. So
That's perfect, Council.
okay, so CAC says 100,000, OCD says 0.
Motion to accept OCD.
Motion's made, and do I have a second?
Second.
Motion made and second to accept OCD. On the, on discussion? Hearing and seeing none. On the motion, all in favor? Aye.
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 Okay, City of Holyoke Park and Rec, Springdale Splash Pad, CAC says 420, OCD says 0. If I could get a motion on that, I'll add to it in a second. I just gotta get a motion.
I'll make a motion to accept the OCD recommendation, Mr. Chairman.
I'll second.
Motion made and second to accept the OCD recommendation. Under discussion, this has come up under CDBG. In fact, we had a very lengthy discussion of it just a few short months ago. And the financing for the demolition of it has been paid for by CDBG, at least we voted for it. And then the full intent is to have financing from CDBG pay for the installation. So I'm of the opinion that this is a really important project and it'll be covered under CBG. So consequently, I'm going to vote to 0 it out, okay? Okay, so the motion's for 0 to accept OCD recommendation. On the motion, all in favor?
Aye.
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 All right, let's see. City of Holyoke Park and Rec, Parks portable toilets, 15,000 recommended by CAC, OCD recommends 0.
Motion to accept OCD.
Second.
Motion made, accepted, accept OCD. Hearing and seeing no further discussion on the motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, motion carries. Next one, VOC Mercado, renovations, community hub. Both OCD and CAC say 0.
Motion to
Motion to accept
accept.
recommendation.
Motion made and second
Second.
to accept the recommendations. Hearing and seeing no further discussion on the motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion
Aye.
carries. City of Holyoke Park and Rec rejuvenation project. CAC says 1 million, OCD says 0.
Can we defer this till we get done with the infrastructure?
We can, so deferred. All right. Next one, Holyoke Board of Health Flex Squad.
Can we defer this one too?
We can? Okay. Counselor Puello, you're okay with deferring it?
Yes, sir.
Okay, yeah, if you're not, just interject. Office of Planning and Economic Development, Board of Health, appreciate Holyoke. CAC says 150, OCD says 0.
Motion to accept the OCD rec.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to accept the OCD recommendation. Hearing and seeing no discussion on the motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 3-0. OCD, clearance and demo.
Can we defer till we get done with the infrastructure, please?
Second.
Okay, we'll defer that one. Let's see. Lighthouse personalized education for teens, acquisition and renovation of 378 Maple Street. OCD and CAC both recommend 0.
Accept recommendations.
Second.
Motion made and seconded, accept the recommendations. On the motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That carries 3-0. Quantum Properties LLC, climate resiliency, flood control, rail removal. The OCD recommends 200. strike, let me just make sure I got, CAC recommends 200, OCD recommends 0.
Can we defer this one till we do infrastructure?
We can defer it.
Second.
Okay. Community Adolescent Resource and Education Center, the CARE Center, to and through college. CAC recommends 50, OCD recommends 0.
Motion to accept OCD recommendation.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to accept the OCD recommendation. Hearing and seeing no further discussion on the motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. All right. Homework House, after-school program at St. Paul's. CAC recommends 200, OCD recommends 0.
Did we fund them on the front?
We did. Is there a motion?
Motion to accept OCD.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to accept OCD's recommendation. Hearing and seeing no further discussion on the motion, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Tech Foundry IT Support Training Center, both OCD and CAC recommend 0.
Motion to accept recommendation.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to accept the recommendation. No further discussion being seen or heard on the motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we are making tremendous progress here, believe it or not. Assistance to small businesses. Let's see here. There is essentially one big, no, there's, yeah, so we can group most of these, but 2 of them I can't. The first one is, this is for Office for Community Development, Business Support Program, CAC.
Can we defer this one till we do infrastructure?
Oh, you want to defer?
Second.
Okay, we'll defer that one.
Mr. Chairman, Alicia has her hand up.
Thank you. Ms. Zoeller?
Thank you. I just, I wanted to call out for this assistance for business that, if the committee so chose, the businesses that actually did a direct application, for assistance, if the small business support program is funded, I just want you all to know that we're committed to reaching out to those businesses and working with them through the program, because we have a different sort of vetting that we do with businesses through the actual program as opposed to this process. So if you are not inclined to discuss individual business applications, just know that OCD staff is ready and committed to work with them if the business support program umbrella funding is approved.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, but I think the body wants to defer this for now. Second, GCA LLC, Gateway City Arts, Payroll and Systems Infrastructure Support. CAC says 50, OCD says 0.
Motion to accept OCD recommendation.
Second.
Motion made and seconded, accept OCD recommendation. Hearing and seeing no further discussion. Oh,
No,
Counsel.
I seconded. I just didn't know if you heard me.
Yeah, motion made and seconded. Hearing and seeing no further discussion on the motion, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? None. Motion carries 3-0. I'm going to group these next 5 because they have similar recommendations, but I'll read them off nevertheless. Holyoke Craft Beer LLC, they want funds for a brewery. Hidden Tradition Distilling Company, looking for funds for distillery. Elite Gateways LLC, construction development for hospitality and tourism. Hamels Catering, unclear. Greater Holyoke Chamber, Grow Holyoke, both are all, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, make sure 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 are all the same recommendations from CAC and OCD. Both say 0 funding.
Motion to accept all recommendations.
Second.
The motion on the floor and seconded is to accept recommendations from CAC and OCD for the 5. Hearing and seeing no further discussion on the motion, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? None. Okay, so we'll just put down my notes. Okay. Assistance to nonprofits. Friends of the Holyoke Merry-Go-Round, Inc., update bathroom facilities. The CAC recommends 34.5. The OCD recommends 0.
I'll make a motion to accept the CAC rec.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to accept the CAC's recommendation. Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none. On the motion to accept the CAC's recommendation, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Okay. And Alicia, I know you're getting all this. 2.34, it looks like it's withdrawn, so we're gonna skip that. Next is Greater Springfield Habitat Nonprofit Capacity Support. Both CAC and OCD recommend $40,000.
Mr. Chairman, could I just ask Alicia for a
Councilor Bacon?
thumbnail sketch on that one?
This is to support the administrative piece of the housing development. So if you are not going to opt to fund the housing development up above, which I believe you zeroed out.
We did.
Yes, you didn't award money to them at line item 24. So there would be no need, there'd be no project to support here at line 58.
Yeah, which raises an
Okay.
interesting point, because if we did support it, I would say in for a penny, in for a pound. So,
Right.
so it's kind of an interesting way to lay it out, and that is a massive amount of money for a $200,000 mortgage. A $40,000 admin fee is an incredibly handsome check. I don't even think the Boston lawyers get that, and there's something down there. So, on the motion, do I have, actually, I don't have a motion.
Well, since we already didn't fund recommend funding of
heard.
the other line, then
Yep.
the motion would be to make this line 0.
Will?
Second.
Okay, motion made and seconded to zero out the 40,000 based on the aforesaid discussion. On the motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Next, Hampden County Career Center, DBA Mass Hire, formerly Career Point. Full steam ahead, community investment in Mass Hire Holyoke's relocation to the STEAM building. Both CAC and OCD said 0.
Motion to accept their recommendations.
Yeah, under discussion. Alicia, what was our rationale behind, because it seems to be in line with your basic argument that you want us, that OCD and wants to support building up Holyoke. So Mass Hire usually is kind of thought of as doing that. So what was our thinking there?
Again, limited dollars and focusing on the city's own infrastructure needs.
Yeah, and not that I'm being a devil's advocate, but we did say 240,000 for Springfield Habitat for Humanity. So potentially we could support the Mass Hire with its relocation from whatever it is, High Street to Race Street. So if the committee would allow, can we just defer this one for half a minute until we work our way down? I know the motion's on the table, but.
Oh, I'll make a motion to defer.
Okay, all right, so we'll just defer this one for right now. Will, you okay with that?
Yes, sir. Second.
Councilor Poyle, yes, okay.
So all in favor?
All right, so we'll just defer, because we're not really taking votes on deferring. And I made my argument there, so let's just move on. Aid to impacted industries, Greater Holyoke Chamber Centennial Foundation, Holyoke Sesquicentennial Celebration. That's a mouthful. CAC said 50, OCD says 0. Do I have a motion?
Motion to accept OCD's recommendation.
Second.
Motion made and second to accept OCD's recommendation. Hearing and seeing no further discussion on the motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None. International Volleyball Hall of Fame, Eat, Sleep, Volleyball, Repeat. The CAC says 50, OCD says 0. Do I have a motion? Or do you want to defer it?
Accept OCD.
I'll second.
Motion made and seconded to accept OCD's recommendation of 0. On the motion, all in favor?
Well, you
Aye.
know what?
Oh, time
You know
out.
what? Let's defer that one
Time out. Okay.
along with, let's defer that one along with your earlier one.
Time out for sports. So we will
Yeah.
defer this one. Okay, so that motion is just still pending. All right. MIFA, Massachusetts International Festival of the Arts, Victory Theater. The Victory Theater, let's see, CAC recommends 500,000. OCD recommends 0.
Motion to accept OCD.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to accept the OCD recommendation of 0. Hearing and seeing no further discussion on the motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Let's see. Holyoke Lodge 902, the BPOE, the Elks Lodge. Holyoke Elks parking lot used for Ashley Reservoir visitors. The CAC recommends 117. OCD recommends 0.
I'd like to make a motion to recommend the 117, the CAC recommendation.
I'll second.
Motion's made and seconded to recommend the $117,000 for parking lot renovation. Any discussion?
Yes.
Councilor Bacon.
The reason that I'm supporting this is because the club is allowing everyone in the community to park there to access the reservoir, which if it wasn't happening, people would not be able to access the reservoir at all. So that's how my take on it.
And the lot itself is fairly deteriorated, you would suggest?
It's basically dirt.
Okay, so we have a public purpose facility used by numerous nonprofits and other agencies for parking, for them to come into the city and to utilize the beautiful Ashley Reservoir maintained by HWP, HWW, I guess now. So it seems like that makes a lot of sense. And it falls hand in glove with what the OCD director just said, Holyoke related infrastructure. So I think based on those arguments, I'm going to support it. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none. The motion on the floor is to accept the CAC recommendation. On the motion, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? None. 117 is suggested. Next up, HR, okay, now we're into new category, other, and we're coming to the end of this long category, the longest of the long categories. HRA, Holyoke Redevelopment Authority's Equity Fund Investment and Code Upgrade Grant Program. CAC and OCD both recommend 0.
Motion to accept the recommendation.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to, Alicia, who applied for this? I mean, I see it's Holyoke Redevelopment Authority, but is that OPED?
It is.
Okay, so that's the Office of Planning and Economic Development applying for a $700,000 ARPA allocation for an equity fund investment and code upgrade grant program. Okay, so that being said, for clarification, the motion on the floor is to zero it out. Is there further discussion? Hearing and seeing none. On the motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, that's 0. We accept the recommendations. City of Holyoke, new comprehensive plan for the city of Holyoke. The CAC says 300,000. OCD says 293,000. Councilor Bacon.
Just a question to Alicia. So we have our master plan for Center City. Is this updating that and expanding it to the entire city? If I'm remembering correctly, could just remind me?
Yeah, so this is the city's overall master plan.
And when is
Hasn't been done in decades. Let me pull up their application and give you some more details.
The master plan has not been done in decades.
I think
Correct.
the last big planning process we did was the Center City.
Yep. So, with me, I'll scroll down to their application and give you the description. Okay, so this is, a new comprehensive plan would incorporate the entire city of Holyoke. And let me get you to the description. The city of Holyoke is committed to updating the city's 24-year-old master plan into a 21st century comprehensive plan. Significant changes in all aspects of public and private life are driving the desire to create a new plan that better reflects the 21st century needs. Immense changes have occurred, in part precipitated by worldwide technological innovation and the advent of disruptive business models, coupled with the direct economic consequences from the COVID-19 pandemic. And the city of Holyoke is poised to channel the city's energy to create a usable, comprehensive plan to address these changes post-COVID.
So are they looking to do a consultant for this, to obtain a consultant?
Let me see. So they're asking for 300. Total cost is 300. There's been 150,000 of cannabis impact fee that's been committed to the project. It will take 2 years to complete. The city, along with consultants hired, will both be partners as well as supporters. So it looks like it'll be done by a third-party vendor.
Okay.
And this, just to be clear, this proposal is coming to you from the Office of Planning and Economic Development.
Okay. And this money has to be used within the next year, right?
No. So these allocations, these contracts for anyone that's awarded funds will run through June 30th, 2026. Because we'll need about 6 months to clean up the final pieces of the grant. Okay. So anyone that's awarded funds at this point will have until June 30th, 2026 to complete the project.
Okay, thanks. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to defer this one till we get through the infrastructure.
We hear you. We will defer. All right, let's move on. We are now in category 3 of 7. So we got through the hard part so far, although we're going to double back. This is public health, negative economic impact, public sector capacity. And this is a fairly small category too, but here we go. HFD, Holyoke Fire Department, personal protective equipment, both CAC and OCD. I'm sorry, there's a slight difference. CAC says 109,472, OCD says 108,732.
Motion to accept the CAC rec.
Second.
Motion is made and seconded to accept the CAC's recommendation for HFD. Any discussion anywhere? Hearing none, seeing none on the motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. City of Holyoke Personnel Department, Employee Professional Development. CAC recommends 90, OCD recommends 0.
Motion to accept OCD.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Does anybody want to make discussion on that?
It's an operational expense in my view, that's all.
Yeah, fair point. To me, I think it's a supplement. It sounds like it's pretty short money, so I'm going to vote no on that recommendation myself. But I'm just one vote. So the motion is to accept the OCD recommendation of 0. On the motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, and I'm going to vote no on that, but that carries 2-1 for OCD. All right. City of Holyoke DPW, City of Holyoke Central Fueling Station Replacement. CAC and OCD both recommend the full amount, which is $1.93 million.
Motion to accept both recommendations.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to accept the recommendations. Hearing and seeing no further discussion. Seems to be aligned with what Ms. Zoeller said. On the motion, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? None. Okay. City of Holyoke DPW, City Hall Parking Deck Rehab. CAC recommends 0. OCD recommends $3 million. Alicia, what's the $3 million get us?
Let me scroll down and give you and log into their application. Basically, it gets work on the long-needed parking deck next to City Hall, but let me get their application pulled up for you.
And if you could help us understand why CAC didn't recommend it, that would be helpful too.
Okay. Let me first pull it up and I can read you the activity description. So the activity description is as follows. The City Hall Parking Deck Improvement Project will involve an engineering feasibility study followed by conducting a detailed existing conditions assessment of the parking structure, including structural assessment and hazardous materials assessment. A feasibility study is proposed to identify alternative improvements and various uses for the structure, including cost estimates. The city will seek a preferred alternative, and engineering consultant will prepare bid plans and specs. Depending on available funding and selected alternatives, the project will be constructed. And the CAC, I think, from their brief conversation on this, just felt like $3 million was an awful lot for a parking lot, and that there were other priorities that they wanted to fund.
Well,
and from OCD staff perspective, this is a project that has been kicked down the road and down the road and down the road, and this is an opportunity with funding available. At some point, it could end up costing the taxpayers, depending on how bad it gets, and at some point, the city will have to do something with it, and so that's why OCD staff recommended using ARPA funds for it.
So I hear
go ahead, sorry.
I hear you on that, but in hearing the description of what the $3 million would be used for, I'm not hearing that anything at all would be fixed with this money. It sounds like all planning and estimating for $3 million?
So,
no fixing?
The description says engineering feasibility study followed by detailed existing conditions assessment, including structural assessments and hazardous materials assessment. And then it does go on in the last sentence says, the city will select a preferred alternative and an engineering consultant will prepare bid plans and specs. Depending on available funding and selected alternative, the project will be constructed.
So they're going to use the first part of it for the first part, and hopefully there's money in there to actually do something to correct things also? Is the reason why you're recommending it?
It is. And frankly, we have to start somewhere.
Right.
We have to start somewhere with it. We know that it's been kicked down the road over and over again. Let me just pull up the budget for you as well. So for those following along on the budget book, it's page 15.
Thank you.
And they do have 400, so the overall budget for this is $3 million. 450,000 is for architect and engineer, and 2.5 million is for construction counselor. So they have budgeted for construction in the 3 million.
But, okay, I'm confused now because it sounded like it was 3.4 plus 2.5.
So the request is for 3 million.
Yeah?
And of the 3 billion, 450,000 is for architect and engineer.
Okay, now I'm with you. I didn't catch that. Thank you.
2,550,000 is for construction.
Okay, thank you very much.
Does that help?
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
It does a
and
lot.
I think these numbers are, they're a bit of a moving target because we don't know what the existing conditions assessment's going to show. We don't know what the hazardous materials assessment's going to show. But they absolutely have construction in their budget.
Okay, all right, thank you. I'll make a motion to accept the OCD rec.
Second.
Yeah, so Alicia, this will all be subject to prevailing wage for construction?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, so motion on the floor is to accept the OCD recommendation of 3 million, where CAC said 0. So that's the motion on the floor. On the motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None. Motion carries 3-0. Next up, City Holyoke DPW, city building upgrades. CAC says 0, OCD says 4 million.
Mr. Chairman?
Councilor Reagan.
Through the chair to Alicia, if I'm remembering correctly, this is the annex and the DPW building?
Correct. It's the annex DPW building, City Hall. There's fire stations in that list, as well as, actually, I should just say, any of these city building upgrades include anything but the school department buildings.
Okay.
So I expect there would be improvements, and don't hold me to this, because of course it depends on how the bids come in, but we have improvements that are needed at the War Memorial, at Wisteria Hearst.
Right.
The library has indicated some needs. We know that DPW and the annex are desperate for needs. So this is a continuation of the first round of ARPA projects.
Okay, thank you.
Is there a motion?
Motion accept the OCD recommendation.
I'll second that.
Motion's made and seconded to accept the OCD recommendation. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none. On the motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, that's a 4.0. All right, we have come to the last page. We're getting there. City of Holyoke DPW, traffic calming installations. CAC and OCD both say 0.
Motion to accept the recommendations.
Second.
Uh,
Alicia has her hand.
Oh, Alicia? No?
Ms. Zoeller, go ahead.
I just wanted to give you an update on where you're at. You've allocated a little more than 12 million, and you have a balance available to allocate of $6,730,280.
6 million?
Yep, thank you.
$6,730,280.
Thanks.
Yeah, on discussion, because I know I heard the motion on the floor. I would like to see if we could do something under traffic calming. Although I did read this particular one, I read most of them, but I read this one with care. It is amorphous. Unfortunately, I wish it was more detailed with specifics about traffic calming for the city. Though I admit that it's just not detailed. It's just very broad. It's like category, but we're always hearing about, and I hate that phrase, traffic calming. I despise it, but it says a lot in 2 words. So, and speeding and things of that nature seem to be a continual cause of frustration for many of us. So I'd like to do something in this category, though I don't want to give recommend $1 million. So I'd like to see if the maker, if the movement of maker of the motion would maybe withdraw that. If I can make a different motion to make that a little, make some kind like $250,000.
Well, can we defer till we get through infrastructure?
We can defer. Let's defer. How many defers do we have? We have a lot.
About 6, 7.
Okay, I'll leave that to your count. Okay, next up, City of Holyoke Office of Procurement, City Hall and all department digitization and shredding project. That's what governance is about. So CAC and OCD both say 0.
Motion to accept the rec.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to accept the recommendation to
That's a
not
good tax work-off
to not pay for shredding. I'm going to agree with that one. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none. On the motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so that one carries 3-0. City of Holyoke DPW, Municipal Employees Training and Ed Funding. CAC and OCD both say 50,000, which
That's
is,
similar to that other one.
isn't it similar to the other one that was a 2-to-1? That went down in flames 2-to-1. But here they both say $50,000 for municipal employees training and ed funding.
Again, I'd like to defer till we get through infrastructure.
And we shall defer. City of Holyoke City Clerk's Office, select agenda and meeting management system from Civic Plus. CAC says 0, OCD says 26,580.
Motion to accept CAC.
I would just defer till we get through the
Yeah,
infrastructure.
why don't we defer that one, Councilor Pueo?
Yeah.
Okay, and we're almost at infrastructure. City of Holyoke and the City of Holyoke technology upgrades and improvements. CAC and OCD both recommend $1.185 million.
So it's a hard pill to swallow because it's expensive, but being dysfunctional is equally expensive. So I'd make a motion to accept those recommendations.
Yeah, motion.
I'll second.
Motion. Almost a motion fails. I'd like to offer a friendly amendment to that, and I'd like to make that, because that seems an excessive amount. I'd like to recommend $800,000. Motion fails. Okay, so back to
I'd make a
the.
friendly amendment to your amendment to $1 million.
Mr. Chairman, I guess I wonder, can we hear what technology, what are the upgrades? I mean, are we just buying laptops, or, are we just upgrading people's software like PDF to something else, or?
Yeah, I'm all for security upgrades, but boy, 1.1. I mean, it's all expensive. We know that, but that seems like a pretty high amount for the infrastructure. Alicia, do you want to speak to this for us?
Sure. So let me just pull up the application for the activity description. So the activity description here is to enhance the city's municipal service delivery, remote operations, and security. I believe this application came in through the mayor's office with assistance from Novus. So it will include much needed digital security, additional licensing for new employees, licensing, servicing, security. There's quite a bit of security here. Proper remote work access, that sort of thing. So I know that Novus, who's the current provider, has been working with the mayor's office around all of the places where the city's technology needs are lacking. So
Motion to fund at 800.
I'm gonna second the motion for the $800,000. That just seems like we could. I mean, you can allow it $800,000 in terms of remote access security, and that's the key, is the remote access, which I know that's where we're driving, but the city of Holyoke, the public, needs to have as much in-person access as possible, and so I'm hopeful that we won't go total private sector-esque and have a remote government. I don't like the sound of that. I'm not naive to the needs for security, online security. It is vital, and it's getting more vital every day, and we don't want to fall into a trap to the extent we can, but we do pay a lot of money for this as it is, and to say that now we're going to use ARPA funds for another almost 1.2 million seems like we could save, $300,000 plus more and use it elsewhere. So that's why I'm going to support the $800,000. So the motion on the floor is $800,000. Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none on the motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Motion carries 3-0, $800,000. We have premium pay. Well, there's no numbers of that, so we'll go to section 5, infrastructure. You got your wish, Councilor Bacon. We made it.
I had to go there first.
Well,
But we did make it.
we did make it, and we're actually moving expeditiously, I have to say.
We are.
My humble opinion.
You are doing a fine job.
City of Holyoke DPW, Springdale Sewer Pumping Station Assessment and Preliminary Design. CAC says 415,000, OCD says 0.
I make a recommendation to accept the CAC.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to accept the CAC's recommendation of $415,000. Discussion anywhere?
Well, I'm going by the priority to invest in infrastructure that will have lasting and important benefit for the city. And I see these infrastructure improvements and enhancements as key to that. So,
And this, I'm going to agree with you, this is a Springdale section, and it is an area of the city that does, I mean, this does so much work for the city, and it protects the city in many, many ways in terms of water. So I'm hopeful that we can get this approved through city council and at the mayor's level. Of course, and we all know the mayor's going to make the final call on this.
right.
So I am going to also support the 415,000. Is there any further discussion? So the motion on the floor is to accept the recommendation of CAC for 415,000. On the motion, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? None. 450,000. Next, HWW, Water Street Water Main Improvements Project, CAC 1.35 million, OCD 0.
I'll make a motion to accept the CAC recommendation
Second.
to forward to the mayor.
Motion made and seconded to accept the CAC's recommendation, I think along the same arguments that you made earlier. Is that correct, Tom?
Yes, that is correct.
All right. I don't want to put words in anybody's mouth, but it sounds to me like that's what you're saying. And I would tend to agree. Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none. On the motion to accept the CAC recommendation, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, 3-0. Okay, next up, HWW Phase 3A Water Main Replacement Project. The CAC and OCD both recommend 0.
I'll make a motion to accept the recommendation.
Second.
I'm going to too, you'll note the budget for that is 8.692 million.
Right.
I don't think we have 8.692 million without dominating the whole ARPA allocation, and that's what makes it hard. Though we all realize that this is looming.
It will be bonded eventually.
Potentially could be bonded. Let us see what happens with other votes we're going to be taking. So on any further discussion? On the motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None. Motion carries to 0 that out. Okay. Let's, I don't really want to group these. We're almost there. HG&E, Holyoke #1 Hydro Project Rehab Design, CAC 150, OCD says 0.
Motion to accept the CAC rec.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to accept the CAC's recommendation, $150,000. Any further discussion? On the motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None. 150. Let's see. These last three for Holyoke Gas and Electric, so I'm gonna stick right along with them. Okay. So HG&E Gatehouse Head Gates operator replacement. CAC says 100. OCD says 0. HG&E Riverside #8 Generator Rewind Engineering. CAC says 50. OCD says 0. Lastly, HG&E Rubber Blader Replacement Engineering. CAC says 100. OCD says 0. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to accept the CAC recs.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded to accept the recommendations of CAC. I tend to agree. The CAC seems to want to fully fund all the budget requests by HG&E. This is an opportunity, I think, for I don't recall HG&E receiving any ARPA funds in the prior round. I'll happily stand corrected if Alicia wants to correct me. I just don't recall it. whereas I remember many other entities, arms of the city government did receive it, but HG&E, I just don't recall it. And it's an entity that's so vital to the city, we all rely upon them. So, any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none. The motion is for these combined to accept the recommendations of CAC. On the motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, before we go to that last one,
There's two,
which is,
there's two final
oh,
ones.
oh,
But Councilor Bacon, you're recognized.
I would, so we have this last one, which is anywhere from $500,000 to $1 million, to keep in mind. It might be a good time to go back to the ones we deferred on. Alicia, can you give us a tally?
And I don't know
Sure.
if you want
Your
to do-
tally, you've allocated $15,234,720, and your available balance is $3,765,280.
Okay.
Well, we'll keep going your way, Mr. Chairman. I was just trying to see,
Well, it sounds like you want to defer that one anyhow, because that's kind of in line with what you said. And then, but I think that, so the one we're going to defer is HG&E Holyoke Broadband Network Upgrade, 10G. CAC says 541, OCD says 930, but we'll defer that. The last category that we haven't touched, well, there's a chapter 6 for revenue replacement. There's nothing listed under revenue replacement. The last category is admin. That's for OCD, admin and planning of the ARPA grant. It's $1 million. Alicia, are we taking on more staff to do this?
At this time, we are not. We are managing the program with three folks. As you all know, we lost Jennifer at the end of March. And right now, we're doing just fine with the three of us. If we find that there's a lot of ARPA projects funded, we may bring on somebody to assist, but right now, I think we're doing okay. This is budgeted and requested at $1 million to take us until the very end of the grant. So this is to go all the way through to December 31st, 2026.
So I take it that's for salaries and all that, but are we, I mean, we already have our salaries covered generally, don't we? Or what are we saying? We're going to be paid for this via ARPA funds through 26, and we won't see
So the city does not provide any financial resources through municipal funds to pay for salaries in the office. So they are entirely funded through grants on a time on task basis. And so it's not just salaries, but it's also the benefits, the auditing, the legal notices that are required, any work with attorneys that we need in drafting deeds and agreements and that sort of thing. It covers the full range of the grants, including monitoring, recording restrictions with the registry of deeds. I expect that because of the level of funding here, the auditing is going to be fairly significant, and that will be a fairly significant expense. Covers our telephone bills, everything it takes to manage the grant.
Right, and so if ARPA didn't exist, you'd be funded how? Through CDBG funds?
So if ARPA didn't exist, our salaries and our time on task would be paid through the CDBG, home, and other HUD programs.
Okay, so I'm trying to get to the point here where are we, so do we need the full $1 million right now? Can we, is the auditing going to be, go ahead.
You don't need the full $1 million right now, but since this was going to be the last round of allocations, we put $1 million placeholder in there.
Okay, so what is it that we think we would need to get, I realize it's the last round. What is it that we think, the audit for all this stuff, $250,000 or hard to say?
At this point, there hasn't been an audit of the ARPA funds, so we don't know. I can pull up our current budget. Let me see if I can switch over screens. Let's see, department budget. Bear with me, I'll go looking for our department budget and give you an idea.
Okay, I'll let you look to that. I want to recognize Counselor Bacon right now, so just to keep the train rolling. Counselor Bacon.
Thank you. So Alicia, along the same lines, what happens if the money isn't needed? Like I know in CDBG it can roll back. What happens with admin fees under the ARPA?
So we only use, obviously we only use expenses. If there's extra money left over, it goes towards projects.
So you can move it? You can move
So we
it?
can, yep, so if it's not being needed in admin, then we push it towards projects.
So it would be reallocated?
It would absolutely be reallocated. Let me see if I can pull this up. We had presented this in our CDBG. You know what? I know an easier place to get this. Bear with me. We had presented this in our CDBG budget, because we laid out the entire budget. So right now, our annual request for ARPA is at $250. But again, we are down a staff person. And so that's how we came up with the million. So that's 23, 24, 25, and 26. So we may be able to do with less than 1 million. And of course, anything that's not used is pushed back into the grant, into activities.
All right, well, why don't we just defer that one till we get to the end, so we can, I heard your argument. So we're just going to double back now to the ones which we deferred. I didn't count them, but I think Councilor Bacon's probably close. It looks like we got about 10 or so. The first one seemed to be OCD public health response. The CAC said $1 million, OCD recommend $500,000. This is.
What's the number?
I'm sorry, committee. This is number 7.
Thank you.
Instead of me saying for a motion, you all know I need to hear a motion from you. So you know that the CAC recommended $1 million, OCD recommended half of that.
And I just have a question.
Councilor Bacon.
Alicia. So Alicia, on this, would this funding be the same that if in the instance there is no public health emergency and a need for a response under this funding, that funding would be repurposed?
Absolutely. So ARPA is a little different than CDBG, and there's an end date, a very specific end date that's been provided by the U.S. Treasury. And so our goal is to start looking at places where there's money, whether projects have come in under budget, whether we haven't utilized, for instance, this public health line item. We're going to start taking a hard look at those sometime around late fall in 2025, so that we have the opportunity at that point to quickly pivot and use the remaining ARPA funds for other activities that will move over those next 6 months to a year. It's something that we do constantly with the CDBG program, but it's a little easier with CDBG because there's no final end date.
Right.
This, we know there's a final end date, so I would say around fall 2025, we're gonna start saying to folks, hey, if your project's not moving, if your project's delayed, we don't wanna send any of this money back. I mean, we know from the statements of interest, we know from this process, there's millions and millions of dollars of need. And so if programs aren't able to move forward within that time range, we're gonna have some time built in that we can shift those dollars.
Right. And I guess I just feel that if we had a bona fide public health emergency, we would certainly avail ourselves of all state level and federal level funds to address it. And it seems like in the last round, while I do believe the project had merit, it didn't really rise to a level of an emergency. So I guess I'm really sort of wedded to the idea of getting the longest bang for the buck we can out of these monies, you know, things that might run for 20 or 30 years for the city. So that's just where I'm coming from on it, and that's why I'm asking. So,
If I could-
thank you.
If I could also add, if
ahead.
it's at all helpful, that with this public health response, this provides the opportunity for the mayor and for Sean of the Board of Health to be nimble in response. And so what that means is that this money is readily available to take care of urgent needs, public health COVID-related needs that may arise where we don't have to seek out other grants, where we don't have time to try to allocate and reprogram funds, where we maybe have something on a weekend where we have let's say a COVID outbreak in housing units and we need to put people in hotels quickly. We realized that we needed to have more porta potties and hand washing stations in the parks. And so this fund, with a checks and balances system, allows the city to be responsive in a way that we've seen that we need to be. It's not necessarily for big ticket like pandemic. Oh, we have a pandemic. It's those sometimes government, and it's not even sometimes, a lot of times government gets tripped up on, I need $500 to take care of this. I need $10,000 to take care of this. And this line item allows the city to have that really unlimited flexibility in addressing those. For instance, I saw this morning, unfortunately, the Chelsea Soldiers Home has a COVID outbreak. We know that we have employees that are continuing to come down and be out with COVID. So this public health response is not necessarily for big ticket pandemic response items. It's for those, let's be nimble in our approach and have some money available. If Sean found that he needed to do a vaccine clinic, and we know that the federal government is pulling back on funding for those, then he would have this money available without having to go through a grant process, without having to go through a reprogramming. It's there ready to be nimble.
Okay, thank you, Alicia. You're the floor, Councilor Bacon, but just one thing.
I'm all set.
Just a very specific end date, Alicia, would you just remind me what that is?
So the grant ends on December 31st, 2026.
Okay, that's what I had. All right.
Our working goal for these grants is to have them wrapped up and fully expended by June 30th, 2026, because we know it's going to take us a good 6 months to finalize the paperwork, put together the reporting, upload all of the final compliance data. Anytime we fund an activity where there are beneficiaries, we need to make sure we're collecting all of the information on those beneficiaries, all the demographics, all of the income information. With every reporting cycle, we report to the U.S. Treasury on a quarterly basis. With every reporting cycle, we're finding that the Treasury is asking for more and more and more information. And so we want to have those final 6 months as a time where our contracts are done, the major activities are done, and now we're in cleanup and getting ready for audit mode.
Right, thank you.
So the legal end date is December 31st, 2026. We want this wrapped up is June 30th.
Thank you. Councilor Bacon?
I'd like to offer a motion that we would recommend a funding level of $250,000.
I'll second.
Okay, motion made and seconded for $250,000. Under discussion, I kind of was close to, I was thinking like $300,000 myself. So just, can I make a friendly amendment to move that to
Sure.
$300,000?
Sure, 300, I'll amend my motion to 300,000.
Okay, I'm going to second that to $300,000. So the motion on the floor is to fund this at $300,000. Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none on the motion. All in favor? Aye. So that's $300,000. I just want to recognize Councilor Tallman is now in chambers with us. Councilor, welcome. The next deferral is at line item 40. That was City of Holyoke Parks Department Park and Rec Rejuvenation Project. CAC said $1 million, OCD said 0.
Through the chair, I'd
Counselor
just
Reagan.
like to hear from Alicia on, they're real far apart on that, what the thinking was, because we do hear a lot about the parks needing attention.
Alicia?
I'm sorry, that was, why OCD recommended 0?
Correct.
Right.
Again, some of those other higher needs, those other municipal needs.
Okay. Okay.
This is,
All right.
I totally recognize that this is just a tough process. It's a
No,
tough process.
we understand. We really do.
Yeah.
And we know we're just recommending to the mayor, and in the end, he will make his best determination with all the
You know,
information. Yes.
If I had it my way, we would, obviously, there's so many really great and creative projects on this list. But I also recognize I've been around a while and we've not put one penny into the parking deck, for instance.
Right.
And so I feel like this is our opportunity, the city's opportunity to really take care of its needs that have been long deferred, bring this workforce into the next century, be able to offer services to residents, so they can get online and, communicate with us and do business with us.
Okay.
Well, I'm gonna interject. I'm gonna make a motion to, and I'll just give a little, in this category, there's a flex squad, there's a park and rec. I for one am not gonna support OCD clearance and demo for 1.5 million. So that's, I think that's better coming from the building department. So I think there's still some flexibility in the dollars that we have right here. So, I'm going to recommend that the parks are funded through ARPA for this particular line item at $500,000.
I'll second that.
Motion made and second to fund the Parks Department at line 40 at $500,000. Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none on the motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, for $500,000. Next deferral was the Flex Squad, line 41. CAC said 0, OCD said $200,000.
Accept the recommendation of CAC.
I'll second.
Counselor Poyle seconded. On the motion, is any further discussion on that motion? Flex Squad is great. I think it's done some great things.
I think it's great too.
But right now, I think there's got to be, we just have to adjudicate a little closer. So I'm going to support that motion. So the motion is for CAC said 0, OCD said 200. The motion is to support the CAC's recommendation. On the motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And it's anything that I'm voting to 0 is nothing against the program, just sort of like what Alicia is saying. It's not about being against things, it's about trying to be for certain.
The next one we have was at line 43, OCD clearance and demo. CAC to 2.5 million, OCD said 1.5 million.
Alicia, can
Councilor Reagan.
I would just like to hear Alicia's thinking relative to the amount and the location of the funding.
So the locations are to be determined by the property preservation group, but I can tell you that there are a fair number, a few projects where it's looking like the city is going to end up demolishing the building in order to make way for economic development. And the demolition costs are far higher than what we typically see with CDBG in the $200,000 to $300,000 range. And so OCD saw this as an opportunity to move along some economic development activities that perhaps we're not going to move as quickly or at all because of vacant, blighted, abandoned buildings standing in the way. The final decision, we put this application in just to help out the departments, but the final decision on where this funding would be used would be made by the mayor's department, by the mayor, in coordination with the Office of Planning and Economic Development, the building commissioner, and as part of that property preservation team.
Okay, I'll make a motion that we accept the OCD rec.
Second.
Motion made and second to accept the OCD recommendation at 1.5 million. I'm not going to support that. I would support a lesser number, but that at 1.5, I can't get there. But that's the motion, $1.5 million. Any discussion further? Hearing and seeing none. On the motion, all in favor?
Aye.
I have
Aye.
one eye. Okay, two ayes. I'm going to vote no on that. So, but it passes 2-1 to support the OCD recommendation, 1.5 million. The next one that we deferred is line 49, the business support
I
program.
think it's 45.
Oh, did I skip one? I apologize. We did. Yeah, I've skipped it. I apologize. Line 45 is the next one. Quantum Properties, Climate Resiliency, Flood Control, Rail Removal. CAC said 200, OCD said 0.
Mr. Chairman.
Councilor Bacon.
Thank you. Alicia, can you just run us through the rationale behind the CAC rec on this one? It sounds like infrastructure to me, but
To be honest with you, Counselor, my recollection is there was really limited conversation on this one, other than I believe the CAC was moved by the idea that it was going to address climate resiliency and flood control.
okay. And so if we are doing flood control, would that represent a savings to the city down the road? If looks like an infrastructure project. Is that what it is?
Let me pull this one up for you. Bear with me. Quantum. Put this under 2.23. I'm going to pull up the application.
Thank you.
Bear with me, this application section has 224 pages. It's taking a bit to read.
Okay.
Oh, I'm close. I happened to land on the application before it, so won't be too much scrolling. Okay, so this application came in from a for-profit, Quantum Properties LLC. And the activity description is as follows. Bear with me, I'm still here. I'm just looking for the
Sure.
activity description. Okay, so this activity description, they wrote in no housing activity. I believe this is, okay, so here's a better activity description. This is in their response to if your request is not fully funded. So if the request isn't fully funded, the scope would be reduced. Their priority is to close a 30-foot gap in the flood wall. They want to discontinue 2 electrified pumping stations along the flood wall, saving the city money. Because the concern is that the Army Corps of Engineers could require that they be brought up to code. They want to prepare applications to the Federal Surface Transportation Board to eliminate the long inactive track along Water Street and along the floodway to encourage economic development in the area and to ensure safe driving on South Canal and Water Street by eliminating dead tracks in the road, dead railroad tracks.
Oh,
The indicator of success for the activity is to reduce the flood risk to the city, saving approximately $1 million, and enhancing road safety and revitalizing the city. Flood wall improvements are required for greater climate resiliency and enhanced safety to all residents. Road improvements assist citizen safety and mobility and promote economic development.
Oh, okay. All right, thank you very much for looking that up. I'd like to make a motion to adopt the CAC recommendation.
I'll second.
The motion's made and seconded to support the CAC's recommendation, which is to fund it at $200,000, which is fully fund. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none on the motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None. Motion carries. Okay, so we can, all right, so flipping the page. Okay, we're going to line 49. OCD Business Support Program, 1 million from CAC, 1 million from OCD. Alicia, where are we with the remaining balance?
We are at, let me see, let me check the different spreadsheet.
I used to like it when you were here, Alicia, with Lisa, and we had the big board going. It was like Jeopardy. I know Councilor Tallman enjoyed that.
It's like Jeopardy, but it's here. I'm having to turn my screen back on. The issue is that my camera is on a different laptop, so you'd be looking at my profile, which is odd. But let me see. Where are we at? Office for Community Development, Small Business. We've expended about 700,000 to date. We had an initial award of 800,000. We've expended 7, and I think we're almost fully committed of the whole 800,000 from the first round.
And I'm just wondering, where are we with tonight's meeting, our $19 million goal? Are we close, or where are we? Alicia? Did we lose you?
Oh,
dear.
sorry about that. You have a balance available of $1,265,280.
Got it.
Okay.
Okay.
Now we still have admin, broadband,
Yep, you got it.
and we're on here. Do we have any, I'm just trying to see how much,
You have a number of deferred.
right, and that's
Yes.
what I'm looking to see.
You've deferred, if you want me to give you the rundown, I've coded them on my sheet here.
Mm-hmm.
You have deferred line 49, line 59, line 61, line 65, line 71, line 73, line 74, line 83, and line 84.
Okay, so we're on line 49.
Right. And Alicia said they've used 800,000 of what was allocated prior,
That's what it sounds like,
but,
yes.
and then it will end. So what continuity plan is there for this if it's funded again for 1 year?
So this funding, allocations that are made and awards that are made in this round will be good through June 30th, 2026. And so we will, however much in business support is allocated here, we will start working on the grant program again. If it looks like we need to, we may structure it so that there's grant money available for the next couple of years instead of giving it all out right now. Because what we're seeing is that the business climate is shifting. And so we want to be able to have money available for the next couple of years with that. But if it's not funded, then that would be the end of any kind of business support.
Yeah,
So-
go ahead, Councilor Bacon.
If I can, so given that we have 7 categories that we've deferred on. I guess I would like to hear from you, your priorities relative to the remaining ones. I mean, I know we need to do something for admin. So, Mr. Chairman, I think at this point, we should try to prioritize what is definitely needed in it, and with the
Well,
remaining fund
Yeah,
that we
that's almost
have.
an impossible question for Alicia.
1.2 million, so, yeah, so I'm not asking her the question, I was sort of thinking out loud, but I'm thinking maybe we should go down and give some admin money, because they need to have some administrative funds to deal with the grant.
So you want to make a motion on that?
Yes, and I would like to fund them, because we have one, that won't leave us much left. I guess I'd like to recommend 800,000 for admin,
Do I have a second on that?
or I'll accept an amendment if
Okay.
people, if a member wants to.
Or,
amend.
okay, the motion made and seconded to amend the 1 million recommended by CAC and OCD for admin funds to $800,000. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none on the motion, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? None. So that has been recommended for 800,000, which is a pretty fair compromise. Okay,
So-
back up to line 49. So that being said,
How much do we have left?
well, if that's the case.
You
we
have
got-
$465,280.
So we either need to move something else around, or just use what we have left.
Well, I mean, I think that, to me, the business support program is a noble one, but that was funded pretty heartily in the first round. So I would accept a motion to fund that at $100,000. If the committee was so inclined, that's still.
I'll second.
Okay.
So moved.
So motion made and second to fund that at $100,000. Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none on the motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That still funds them at a pretty robust number, considering that they have a couple 100,000 left over. The next one is line 59. This is the one that I deferred. It doesn't seem, based upon the numbers that we're facing right now, to be even remotely likely, unfortunately. So since I asked for the deferral, I'll make the motion, which I'm loath to do as a chair, acting chair, but
Well, I'll make the motion to accept the CAC and OCD recommendation.
thank you.
Second.
Motion made and second to accept the CAC and OCD recommendation, and again, that's a tough one, but we can say this for everyone. On the motion, any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none on the motion to zero that out, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None.
Pardon me, what line item was that? Was that 59?
That is line 59.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, now we're sailing down to line 61. This is the volleyball hall. This is $50,000. Same with, we deferred that one. I'm of the opinion that I think with the remaining budget, we can probably tackle that. So I'd like to see if we can hear a motion to support the CAC's recommendation for the volleyball hall.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, motion made and seconded to support the CAC recommendation of $50,000 for, on line 61 for the International Volleyball Hall of Fame. Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none on the motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, none. Okay, $50,000 for that one, Alicia. That's line 61. The next deferral is line 65. City of Holyoke new comprehensive plan. So this is the master plan. This is doing the master plan for the entire city. We did hear from Alicia that there is cannabis impact support. I would hope to be, that's a fairly healthy fund right now, at close to $4 million. Certainly that fund could be tapped even further. But I think ARPA should provide some kind of support for this, So I'd like to hear more for somewhere around $50,000 for this to help keep that, budgeted. Or something different.
Motion to fund 65, recommend funding at 50,000.
Second.
Motion is made and seconded to fund the aforesaid for $50,000, keeping in mind that they have multiple other resources. Any further discussion? Here, Council Tallman.
Yeah, sorry, I'm a little bit late. I had another appointment or meeting tonight. Did you do number 63, the Hoyoke Elks parking lot?
We did.
Well, was there funded at all?
We recommended.
We recommended 117.
Okay, thank you.
So on the motion for $50,000 for the comprehensive plan, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, sorry, a little brain cramp there. Thank you, Councilor Bacon. Okay, so if that's $50,000 for that. Look at this, we're on the last page. Holy moly. Traffic calming installations. Again, I made the deferral on that. I'm gonna have to bite the bullet on it, only because of the reality of the financing
Motion
balance.
to accept the recommendation by CAC and OCD.
Motion made and second to accept the recommendation from CAC and OCD to zero that out. Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none on the motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, so that one's zeroed. Next, municipal employee training and education funding, $50,000.
I'd like to make a motion to accept the recommendation of CAC and OCD.
Second.
Motion made and second to accept the recommendation for $50,000. I wholeheartedly agree. I think that's a great motion. So, on the further discussion, hearing say none, on the motion, all in favor? Aye. So Alicia, that's line 73, $50,000 for the training as recommended. Line 74, select agenda and meeting management from Civic Plus for the clerk's office. CAC said zero, OCD said 26,580.
I'll make a motion to accept the recommendation of the OCD.
Counselor?
No? Okay.
I'll second that. I'll second it. Any discussion on this? Hearing and seeing none. On the motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
No.
Is that a yes or a no?
So no.
Okay, thank you, Counselor.
Sorry.
No,
It's okay.
I gotta learn to listen better. Thank you for that. And thank you again, Counselor, for stepping up as well, give us a quorum for tonight. I really appreciate it.
Anything for
Okay.
you, Susan.
I'm scrolling down. Okay, Alicia,
Whatever we
I
have
feel like we're at
left.
the final one.
You've got $188,700 left.
Well, I don't know how much HG&E can do with that.
$188,700. $188,700. Did we zap anybody that could use that? Because I don't think HG&E could really use that money to do much with it. But
we can put.
But you know what? You can put it towards, to me, it's truly that if HG&E can get that going, that is a game changer.
Yeah, I would make a motion to put the remainder on line 83, HG&E.
Is that seconded?
Second.
Okay, motion's made and seconded to apply the remaining balance of $188,700 towards the aforesaid. Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none. On the motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Alicia, how are we?
Congratulations, you're at zero.
Sorry, I like being a zero. Okay, so I'll take one final motion.
Motion to adjourn.
I'll make a
If I
motion.
could,
Nope.
if I could, I'd like to I was also doing these on paper, I'd like to just read down and make sure that I didn't miss anything.
Well,
Okay.
So,
Well-
starting
well-
at line, if that's okay?
sure.
it's okay, so speed read.
Okay, I'll speed read. Line 2, Holyoke Police Department, $336,000. Line 5, Homework House, 100,000. Line 7, OCD Public Health, 300,000. Line 17, Community Education Project, 20,000. Line 22, Connecticut River Conservancy, 122,748. Line 27, Holyoke Housing Authority, 2.5 million. Line 40, City of Holyoke Parks Department, Rejuvenation, 500,000. Line 43, OCD Clearance, 1.5 million. Line 45, Quantum Properties, 200,000. Line 49, OCD Business Support, 100,000. Line 56, Friends of the Merry-Go-Round, 34,500. Line 61, Volleyball Hall of Fame, 50,000. Line 63, Elks, 117,000. Line 65, City of Holyoke Master Plan, 50,000. Line 66, Holyoke Fire Department, Personal Protective Gear, 109,472. Line 68, DPW Fueling Station, 1.9 million. Well, 1,930,000. Line 69, DPW, 3 million for parking deck. Line 70, DPW, 4 million for building upgrades. Line 73, DPW for municipal employee training, 50,000. Line 74, City Clerk's Office, 26,850. Line 75, City of Holyoke Technology, 800,000. Line 76, DPW Springdale Sewer Pumping, 415. Line 77, Water Street Water Main, 1,350,000. Line 79, Gas and Electric, 150 for Holyoke number 1 Hydroelectric Project Rehab. Line 80, HG&E Gatehouse Gates, 100,000 for the engineering replacement. 81, Gas and Electric Riverside number 8 Generator Rewind Engineering, 50,000. Line 82, Holyoke Gas and Electric Rubber Bladder Replacement Engineering, 100,000. Line 83, Broadband, Holyoke Gas and Electric, $188,700. And finally, line 84, Office for Community Development, Admin and Planning, 800,000.
Yeah, the only one I think you transposed was
yeah.
at line 74. I think you said 26,850. I believe it's 26,580.
Right.
I'm sorry, okay, 26.5, sorry about that.
You know, I don't want you to have to climb through like for $200. So let me take a motion to accept the DGR recommendations as amended, and, okay?
I'll make a motion that we forward to the city council the recommendations from DGR as read into the record by Alicia, in summary.
Second.
Motion made and seconded, in the aforesaid. On the motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, and as the public is aware, and I said at the start of the meeting, we recommend the city council will also take a vote tomorrow night to recommend, and then the ultimate decision maker is the executive of the city. I'll take one final motion.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion,
Second.
motion undebatable, motion made and second to adjourn. On the motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank
Good
you.
night, everyone. Thank you.